Hello, my Chicago Cubs fans. Welcome back to the channel. I apologize, the videos have been a little lackluster. Not a whole lot going on at this point in the off season. However, there are some topics I would like to discuss with you today. But before we get started, my friends, we are rocking out Dansby Swanson, the gray road alternate today. As always, got to show you guys the jersey of the day that we are going with for the video. Couple of things, one on the position player side, one on the pitcher side of things. Cubs are kind of in an interesting position, are they not? I've been hearing a lot about the Cubs being linked to a couple of trades. Potentially Cody Bellinger and Nico Horner. They are on the trade block, and that is weird to me only because I could have sworn to you that Nico Horner's contract was set up identical to Ian Happ's with no trade clause. So I'm curious about that. And also for Nico Horner, how much does that surgeries that he just had in the offseason, how does that affect his trade value if he is to be traded? I'm not 100% sure on that. I would like to think that because the Cubs brass has kind of already stated, that the surgery wasn't really major. He should be ready to go by spring training. That is still an uncertainty that you do have to worry about. So what kind of value could you get back for him? I don't know if you would get anybody that's necessarily MLB ready or someone who is already in the major leagues. And then on that case, are you going to go trade for bullpen help? That seems most likely to me. Or are you going to go trade, for farm help, which I don't really think that the Cubs are in a position to really need farm help. I mean, we're looking at Matt Shaw, who's killing it in the WBCS. Is that what it's called? Is that what it is? Yeah. I mean, he just hit 2 homers in a game and a double. I really can't see the Cubs farm system really needing a whole lot more help than what it's already got. I know that we're a top 5 farm system, so a Nico Horner trade, the only way that would make sense to me is if they're linked to Willy Adames from the Brewers, just because of Willy Adames coming out and saying that he would be willing to move to third base or second base, and that would free up the spot for him if you traded Nico Horner and then signed Willy Adames. Because if you cut Nico Horner and you're still going after Adames, then you got that between Adames, Nico, and Dansby, who goes where kind of a thing. And then the other thing that goes along with that is Isaac Paredes at third. If Adames were to play third, what would you do with Paredes at that point? Cody Bellinger seems to be an interesting trade chip for me as well, mainly because you kind of got to bank on him playing as good as he did in 2023. Otherwise, if he plays not so good, he's going to opt in for 2026, right? And even though it was a down year for Bellinger, it was still a good year for Bellinger, comparatively speaking, from his last couple of years with the Dodgers. And you're still looking for a power bat. Nobody on the team really had that in terms of slugging and outright home runs. So I'm curious to see what they would get in return for Bellinger. I again, same with Nico. I can't really see it being anybody that's already in the MLB unless it's you're trying to help your bullpen. I think that would be who you would want to get in return for Bellinger. Maybe a pair of relievers. I don't think you're going to want to go after draft capital for either of the two. Because again, I think that your farm system is already good enough. I would prefer that you work on that bullpen and starting rotation. And again, if you're trading Bellinger and Nico, I would think that power bet that they're going to go after would probably likely be Adames, just because of his link to Craig Counsell. And now with that, with those two guys on the trade block, I know that the Cubs have already come out and said that they're not worried about first base. They're going to stick with Michael Busch over there, and I agree with that. I think that his defense was really good. He could have been a Gold Glove finalist on the year for first base. I think that, going into a second full year in the majors is going to be really good for him. I could see his offensive production taking an uptick in 2025, so that will be really fun to watch him. If he winds up doing pretty decent in spring training, I'm going to have to get me a couple Michael Busch jerseys for sure, 100%. And then on the pitching side of things, right, there is an interesting name has been consistently popping up since pretty much the trade deadline last year, and that would be Max Fried. I'm interested in Max Fried a lot. His 2024 season stats, I'm looking at this right now. 11 and 10, 325, 166 strikeouts, and a 1.16 WHIP. I don't have the stats right up in front of me right now, but I did hear. Actually, you know what? I'll just pull them up real quick. He's a career 3.07 ERA pitcher in 168 games. Let's see. So he's a 24.1 WAR pitcher, 73 wins, 36 losses, 3.07 ERA, and a career 1.164 WHIP. I mean, look, when you're talking about having a guy like Max Fried at the top of your rotation, along with Imanaga and Steele, and then Tyone is your fourth, you could kind of experiment and do whatever you want with that fifth spot in the rotation, because Max Fried is just a guy who, he was always just working and getting. He's just consistent. He's like that John Lester, just consistent. And this is the other part that I've seen a lot of Cubs podcasts bring up lately is that brings also Travis d'Arnaud into the conversation. And I think that makes a lot of sense, because to me, that is exactly what you did with Lester and Ross in 2015, right? That is the same package deal to a T. And you put d'Arnaud with Amaya behind the plate, I think that gives you plenty of stability through the entire season. Because I think that Travis d'Arnaud would be a really good guy to have with Amaya in case Amaya has that offensive lull like he had this year in the summertime. If he starts to struggle a little bit, you can dominantly use d'Arnaud for a little bit until Amaya gets himself right. Which, the way that, Amaya and PCA had their uptick at the end of the year, if they carry that into 2025, that would be excellent, because everybody on the offense really upticked towards the end of the season, and I'm just hoping that they can carry that over and then not have that same offensive production lull that they had last year, because I think that would be the difference maker last year and this year coming up. And like I said, I think that Max Fried and Travis d'Arnaud would be, it would be a Lester Ross signing all over again, and I think that Max Fried would be the difference maker in your starting rotation, because you did have some question marks when Assad went down and Hendricks was starting there for a little while. So, I think that as we move into the winter meetings, these conversations will start to pick up and it'll get really interesting. Looking at the date here, we're only about a month away from the winter meetings, because I believe the winter meetings are, I believe they're in the beginning of December, right? The winter meetings in 2024. Well, it's in Dallas. Yeah, but when? Yeah, December 8th through the 11th. Okay, so um, I look forward to the winter meetings coming up because, like I said, this is going to pick up a lot of these conversations very quickly. We'll keep an eye on the potential trades for Bellinger and Nico. We'll keep an eye on who the Cubs are chasing for the pitching, and uh, also potentially the. Wow, I'm drawing a blank here. I am so sorry. The Willie Adames potential signing because of Craig Counsell. Like I said, I'm confident that the Cubs are in on Willie Adames because of Counsell. So, you know, as the winter meetings come up, that's when a lot of at least on the Cubs side, that's when conversations tend to pick up. We really don't hear a lot from the Cubs until the winter meetings. But Chicago Cubs fans, you let me know what you think. Are Nico and Belly on the way out? Will they be traded? Do you think that the Cubs could land a Max Fried? What about Adames? Let me know in the comments below. Like the video, share the video, drop a comment. Oh, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet, and that little bell next to it, so we can beat that YouTube algorithm, my friends. With that, I will probably catch you next week on the Cubs side of things. I will talk to you guys later.